Welcome to another episode of Ask Dr. Charles. Today, we got a letter from Joey. Joey from South Carolina. Nice to talk to you, Joey. What else does Joey have to say? Dear Dr. Charles, I love computers. How do they work? Not only am I going to show you how they work, Joey, we're going to build one ourselves out of like real computer parts and everything. Maybe we can make it even work. So that's what we're going to do today. What you see on the table here are two different power supplies. You got a black one and a gray one. Which is better? Well, the gray one is 350 watt power supply. And the black one is 850 watt power supply. The difference is, this one can handle more stuff in the PC. This one is just for your standard old typical one. What they do, you plug this cord into the slot in the power supply, and this plugs into the wall. Oh wow. So which one do I use? I guess we're using this one to build our PC. So this here is an empty computer case. If I look, there's nothing inside, but there are a couple wires. These couple wires are for the ports on the front. What we need to do is install the power supply into the case. And I'll show you how to do that. So now you gotta turn this around. You grab yourself a drill or a screwdriver and see these little holes right here. They're screw holes. And you have to line up the screw holes just like that. And you can drill them in. If you don't have a drill, you can use a screwdriver. So now that's going to be mounted in there, I just got to get a couple more drill holes in. Alright, I have two motherboards here.
Someone called
These are motherboards.
mother?
No, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about motherboards.
No horny goes for number to you.
They're different sizes, but it doesn't matter. Because they both do the same thing. They're all, the smaller one's for micro PCs, and this one's for a regular one. On the motherboard is a little slot. This is called the CPU. CPU does all the thinking of the machine. Now this motherboard is the old motherboard that I'm replacing. On here is a CPU. You can unlock the CPU by pulling the lever and pulling it out. When you put a CPU back in, you have to make sure that it's in there correctly. There's a little triangle on here. The triangle has to line up with the triangle on the corner of the CPU. When you put the CPU in and you line the triangle up, you can put the lever down and turn it upside down and shake it real hard. Make sure it don't fall out. If it falls out, you're in trouble. What you don't want to forget is to put this heatsink fan on here. If you don't put a heatsink fan on it, when you turn on the CPU, it will overheat. And if it overheats, you're in deep doo-doo. Good, it's on there. If it fell off, I'd be in deep doo-doo. Now this is the new motherboard I'm putting into the PC. And this is the old one. Notice the difference in size. This is a micro motherboard. And this is a mini one. The difference, you just gotta make sure that it fits into the case. If it doesn't fit in the case, you're in deep doo-doo. Now, notice on this motherboard, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 memory slots. The old one only has 1, 2 memory slots. They use the same memory. This is DDR3. But I can add more memory to this one. Notice the memory cannot be put in backwards. There's a notch on this memory.
So if I were to put this memory in here, and if I want to put it backwards, it does not go in. It only goes in one way. Also, if you have a motherboard that's made for DDR4, it won't work with a DDR3 motherboard.
So the memory we're putting in is DDR3. Notice it'll say the size of the memory chip. This is 2 gigabytes on the chips. You know, it's a good idea when you replace the memory chips to put all the same speeds and the same sizes when you put it in there. Otherwise, it only goes as slow as the fastest one. Or the fastest as the slowest one. Or something like that.
Some machines have different banks. Notice these are 2 blue ones and 2 black ones. That means this is the same bank as this one. So if you have different types of memory chips, it's best to put the same memory chips in the same banks. Did I confuse you? So I don't want to put one there and one over here. I'd rather put them in the same bank. Right there. If I only had 2, I'd put them in the same bank. You'll notice there's little holes every so often. You put the screws in the holes and you drill them in. There's one. If you notice, there's a whole bunch of wires everywhere. How are you going to figure out where anything goes? Well, just take the power supply ones and just put them aside for now. This is from the motherboard. The motherboard has some wires. This one says USB. This is audio, reset switch, hard drive lead, and power switch. And now if you look very closely, on the wires coming from the motherboard, it has names on them. If you look at the motherboard, there's names also, where it says USB or power reset. That's where you plug the wires in, man. So let's go plug them in. Notice there's a blank right there. It can only plug in one way. So USB right there. After you get the power leads in and you get the fan from the CPU plugged in on the CPU on the motherboard, then you got to plug the power into the motherboard from the power supply. Well, I like to run mine underneath everything. It's called wire management, man. Have it come up through here. And then you plug that into the motherboard. That will give you power. However, some motherboards require another power. And that would be power for on a secondary power on the motherboard. And you plug that in. Normally there's 1 or 2. There you go. So now the motherboard will work. Now it's time to put the memory chips in. Let's put the memory chips in. 1 bank at a time. 2, 3. You gotta count on 3, 4. All these memory chips are the same size. And they're the same, so it's a lot easier to put them in the right banks. At this time, if you had an extra graphics card or another card you can put in, you put it in now. But I don't have an extra graphics card because this motherboard has a graphics card built in, man. All these extra wires are for other things like CD-ROMs and any other extras that you're going to add to the computer. But this one's going to be a simple, plain J's computer, man. Now it's time to show you how to put a hard drive in. This is a SATA cable. It plugs into the hard drive. See how it has a little like Charles mouth on it? You put that in there, it only goes in one way. And then the other side goes into a SATA port on the PC. Just like that. And then the power supply will have some cables on it. Hopefully if you got the right power supply, and that will run the power to the hard drive. Just like that. Now you have to screw it in here. After you get the hard drive screwed in, you gotta tuck all these wires down. Wire management, man. I don't think that's in there very well. No one's going to see it. And then, what else do we need? Yeah, let's screw the back on. You put the back on, and you take a screw, and you put it right in like that. Yep. Oh no! What about the other side? Alright, all we need is a keyboard here and a mouse. Oops.
A mouse!
Ah,
A mouse! A mouse!
It's a computer mouse. Ugh. And that's for today's episode. If you have a question you want to ask Dr. Charles, you can just write me a letter. Dr. Charles, or leave a comment in the description below. Yep.